A plate of chicken and rice costs $9 in New York. In Hanoi, the same kind of plate costs $2. If you're just looking at price tags, Hanoi wins by a mile. But price tags lie, or at least they only tell you half the story. Today I'm comparing the same meal in 5 countries, not by what it costs in dollars, but by how many minutes of work it actually takes to pay for it. And the result flips the ranking upside down. The most expensive country on paper ends up being one of the cheapest in real terms. Stick around because that one surprised me too. Here's how this works. I'm using chicken and rice as the test dish because some version of it exists almost everywhere. Rice is the world's most common staple. Chicken is the world's most eaten meat. So the combination gives us a fair baseline across very different food cultures. For each country, I take the price of one plate at a normal, everyday spot. Not a tourist restaurant, not a 5-star hotel. The kind of place a local worker actually eats lunch at. Then I divide that price by the country's legal minimum wage converted to an hourly rate. Not the average salary, the floor, the amount the lowest paid worker in that country is legally guaranteed. That gives us a number in minutes, how long that person has to work to afford the exact plate you're looking at on screen. This isn't a perfect measure of cost of living. It doesn't account for taxes or rent or the fact that most people don't actually live on minimum wage. But it strips out currency confusion and gets at something dollars alone can't show you: what a meal actually costs a person in the time of their life. I'm cooking a version of this dish myself while we go through the numbers, so you can see what we're actually talking about instead of just staring at a spreadsheet. Let's start at home. United States federal minimum wage is $7.25 an hour. It hasn't moved since 2009, even though some states pay double that. For this comparison, we're using the federal number as our baseline across the board. A chicken and rice platter from a halal cart in New York, the kind with the white sauce everyone argues about, runs about $9. Divide 9 by 7.25, convert to minutes, and you get 75 minutes of work. A little over an hour for one plate. Keep that number in your head, 75 minutes. That's our reference point for everything that follows. Vietnam next, specifically Hanoi. Minimum wage there is regional, and Hanoi falls into the highest wage zone the country has, still one of the lowest minimum wages in the world at 98 cents an hour. A plate of com ga, rice with chicken, from a local street stall costs around $2. On the surface, that's 4.5 times cheaper than New York. Everyone's first instinct is to call Vietnam the bargain here. Do the division instead. $2 divided by 98 cents an hour comes out to 122 minutes. 2 hours of work, almost twice as long as New York, for a meal that looked like the deal of the century. This is the part that should make you distrust price tags a little more. Cheap and affordable are not the same thing. Nigeria is where the math gets hard to watch. The national minimum wage is 70,000 naira a month. At current exchange rates, that's about 28 cents an hour. A plate of jollof rice with chicken from a local buka, a casual Nigerian canteen, costs somewhere around $1.40. That's the cheapest plate on our entire list in raw dollars. Divide it out and you get 303 minutes. Just over 5 hours of work for a single plate of rice and chicken. 5 times longer than what it takes in New York for a meal that costs 6 times less on paper. That's the gap this whole video is built around. The cheapest sticker price does not mean the cheapest meal. Now the one that flips everything, Norway. Norway doesn't have a government set minimum wage at all. Wages are negotiated by sector through union agreements, and in hospitality, that floor sits around $19 an hour, one of the highest minimum pay rates on the planet. A casual chicken and rice dish in Oslo costs around $28. That's more than triple the New York price. On camera, this looks like an easy joke. Norway is expensive, haha, moving on. Except divide 28 by 19 and you get 86 minutes. Less than an hour and a half. That's barely more than New York's 75 minutes, and it's less than half of what Russia and Vietnam came out to, even though both of those countries have far cheaper prices in dollars. Norway has the most expensive plate on this list and the second cheapest cost in actual work time. If you only remember one number from this video, remember that one. Last country, Russia, because you all keep asking for it in the comments. Minimum wage there is 27,093 rubles a month as of this year, which works out to roughly $1.68 an hour. A plate of chicken and rice from a stolovaya, a cafeteria-style spot that regular Russians actually eat lunch at, costs around $3.20. Divide it out and you land at 114 minutes. That puts Russia almost exactly in the middle of our 5 countries. Not the cheapest, not the most brutal. Just a solid, unremarkable middle, which is honestly rare for this kind of comparison. So here's the full lineup, ranked by actual work time, not price tags. New York, 75 minutes. Oslo, 86 minutes. Moscow, 114 minutes. Hanoi, 122 minutes. Lagos, 303 minutes. Look at that order for a second. The most expensive meal in dollars sits in second place. The cheapest meal in dollars sits dead last. If you'd ranked these 5 countries by price alone, you'd have gotten the order almost completely backwards. That's really the point of this whole exercise. A price tag tells you what something costs. It doesn't tell you what something costs someone. Those are 2 different questions, and food is one of the few places you can actually run the numbers and see the gap for yourself. Next time, we're doing the exact same 5 countries with 1 loaf of bread. My guess is the order changes completely. Yours might too. Tell me in the comments which country you think wins that one.